Welcome to today's Athletic Business webinar, Lightning Safety 101, where we're going to discuss making severe weather management a little bit easier. Today's presentation is sponsored by Earth Networks, and I'm Andy Berg, Executive Editor of Athletic Business Magazine. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping details related to the platform. You're able to ask questions at any time during the presentation. You can do that in the module there where it says questions. You can also download today's slides in the handout section of the module. And then also throughout the presentation, we're going to be asking a few poll questions, and we'll just do those. I think there's 3 of them that we'll be asking. I'd like to welcome today's panelists, including Assistant Athletic Director at James Madison University, Ty Phillips, and Steve Prinzivalli, Program Manager and Meteorologist at Earth Networks. Guys, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Andy.
Steve, I think we'll turn it over to you. You are currently experiencing some severe weather yourself as we're presenting, so that makes for a great backdrop to today's discussion.
Yes, we are, Andy. We're actually here in Germantown, Maryland, which is just outside Washington, D.C., and we are getting pummeled with storms. We had a batch that rolled through last night, really created havoc around the Capitol Beltway, and now today we're seeing a second round of thunderstorms just as we're doing this presentation. So I promise you all I will stay safe during this webinar.
Please do. Take it away, Steve.
Sure. So this is Lightning Safety 101. And what we're going to be talking about is really how to make this lightning safety management plan easy at your campus, at your facility. Break it down into some easy steps to talk about our technology solutions and really our best practices that we recommend. And again, I'm joined with Ty Phillips. I want to thank Ty again for taking his precious free time. He's had a busy day already with some storms that rumbled through there and the Harrisonburg, Virginia area. Ty is, of course, the Assistant Athletic Director at James Madison University. Ty, I don't know if you wanted to speak briefly about your experiences even this morning, but I alluded to the fact that you did have a storm come through there. How did that impact some of the activities on campus this morning?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Steve and Andy, for having me join. I've been at James Madison for about 15 years, and I work in athletic administration, and specifically, I'm responsible for facilities and event management. And with that, one of the main things that we deal with is weather and how it relates and impacts our everyday activities. And just this morning, we are in the fall startup. Preseason camps have started for soccer and football specifically. So we had outdoor activities, and a little rare to have early morning thunderstorms. We typically have that in the afternoon, but all of our staff, support staff, programs that are outdoor sports had to adjust because of the weather that came through. A pretty fast moving storm, which we're thankful about, but with the radar detector program that we have, we're able to anticipate that, make adjustments, and then our programs have to adjust their practices and move indoor to indoor spaces, and then think about adjustment to practices for the rest of the week. So real time, I mean, this is the time of the year where we really anticipate dealing with these types of things from a lightning perspective. So I've been surprised, I think, to learn over the last number of years how important weather is a factor in our everyday activities, and specifically lightning is one of the leading things that we deal with here in our area.
Well, thank you, Ty. Great perspective. And of course, we'll hear more from you later regarding the solutions that you have in place there at James Madison University. And Ty's been a terrific example of utilizing technology to really help enhance situational awareness, keep all the students, staff, faculty, coaches safe on campus. And that's really critical. So the first poll question that we're going to have during this webinar is this one. Are you the weather safety management decision maker at your facility? Simple yes or no question. And we'd love to kind of gauge your answers and gauge your response here. as we push on. But again, this is going to be a really compelling webinar where we're going to talk about some of the basics of a good lightning safety plan to allow you to make good informed decisions on what to do and how you can best address some of the safety concerns at your facility. So as I hear the sky rumble all around me, this is a perfect example of what lightning causes. Lightning causes thunder. Lightning is a frequent, naturally occurring phenomenon. It's often underestimated. And of course, lightning heats the air very rapidly to about 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. So when that happens, it creates a sound wave that we hear as thunder. When a storm is approaching, there will often be a rumble of thunder that you will hear. But as the storm gets closer and closer to you, that thunder sound will become a lot more, I'll say, ominous, a lot louder, a lot clearer, a lot crisper, and a lot shorter. So that's when you know lightning is encroaching upon your athletic facility. Another reality, sadly, 2/3 of all lightning deaths in the United States are associated with outdoor sports and recreational activities. And of course, Ty took the precautions today, canceling or suspending or delaying activities. And this is critical because so many people are outside, especially this time of year, engaged in sports, engaged in recreational activities. And this is a hot time of the year, obviously, for lightning, the June, July, August timeframe, not only when people are off from school, but also when people have an opportunity to be outside engaging in recreational sports. And not surprising, with the sun setting later, the most vulnerable time for people to be struck is during the late afternoon and evening. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock. That coincides with maybe when you're having a pickup softball game, when you're outside playing your final round of golf, when you might be having a soccer match. These are all times of the day that people are outside, courtesy again of the NOAA National Weather Service. We have these stats and information, but it's not surprising. Typically, people are going to be outside engaged in activities, and they're putting themselves at risk when there are these storms. Several types of lightning to mention. The first one is in-cloud lightning. That's IC. It's simply put lightning that doesn't strike the ground. It is often called intracloud or intercloud lightning. Often we see this when a storm is intensifying, developing, approaching. As I gaze out the window, there's mainly cloud-to-ground lightning, and that's when a storm has developed maturity, when it starts to rain. That's when you'll get that tremendous frequency of cloud-to-ground lightning. That's lightning that obviously strikes the ground, which to us is the most dangerous. But the IC component is so valuable because Earth networks can detect both cloud-to-ground and in-cloud lightning. You scratch your head and say, Steve, why is in-cloud lightning that critical? It precedes a storm. Yes, well, it can give an advance warning of a storm coming. And second, it often indicates a storm is becoming severe. A storm is becoming intensifying and may eventually drop that dangerous cloud-to-ground lightning bolt that can be so deadly to people. So that's why that IC lightning, which is a high-frequency type of lightning, is so valuable to be able to detect. And we at Earth Networks can indeed do that. Another concern with lightning or any storms is something called a bolt from the blue. That's a cloud-to-ground lightning flash that usually comes out of either the backside or the front side of a storm. And it can dart from about 10 to 12 miles outside of the storm. I saw something like this when I was driving home, and it's very common, believe it or not. A storm could be right over you, and obviously it's raining. That's when people are inside and away from windows. But if the sky is sunny and a storm is either approaching or departing, people may have a false sense of security, and they're still outside, or they're going back outside. And that's exactly when people can get struck by a bolt from the blue, because it literally can seem like it comes from a blue sky, from a sky that's sunny. And that's why you need to really take the precautions. Anytime there's lightning within a dangerous radius, and we'll talk about that shortly, you're inside, you're away from windows, activities have stopped. So how does lightning form? Glad you asked. Simply put, it is a result of charge separation in the atmosphere. Positive charged ions, usually in the upper part of the thunderstorm cloud, with negatively charged ions, usually in the middle part of the thunderstorm cloud. Opposite charges attract naturally. So there's going to be, typically, as this storm is intensifying and growing by the warm, humid air, you're going to see in-cloud lightning. In-cloud lightning is, again, lightning that doesn't strike the ground, yet it's illuminating the sky, illuminating the cloud. And when this happens, it indicates A, a storm is strengthening, but B, that later you could have that cloud to ground strike. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this schematic. As the storm gets up to 30, 40, 50,000 feet in altitude, and eventually it starts raining, the severe weather arrives. That could be large hail, gusty winds, tornadoes, even flash flooding. Then the cloud to ground strike occurs. So that's why, once again, the in-cloud lightning detection capability that we here at Earth Networks have, we have total lightning. We can detect both in cloud and cloud to ground, and that can be a lifesaver, because when severe weather happens, such as tornadoes and hail and high winds, we have the ability to get you safe inside faster than other technologies out there. And again, this illustrates what I was talking about. The lightning risk, sure, is very high as the storm's overhead, but as the storm is approaching or as it's departing, people may let down their guard a little bit. They may be outside trying to squeeze in that last inning of the game, that last round of golf, before that storm arrives. They may hear the thunder and they say, well, let's try to get that last inning in. Bad idea, because that's when you could get either a bolt from the blue, or again, you could get struck as the storm rapidly approaches. And that is why your risk can be very high as the storm is approaching or as the storm is departing. So keep that in mind. That's what this graphic illustrates here. The fact that your exposure to risk is going to be very high, even if the storm isn't directly overhead. We here at Earth Networks have a total lightning network, as mentioned. We're able to detect in-cloud and cloud-to-ground lightning. So we went back, we did the research, we looked at our total flash count, total number of flashes for 2018. And no surprise, the vast majority of lightning obviously occurs in your states like Florida, throughout the plains, the Midwest, the Deep South, but just about every state in the country has lightning, including Maine and Washington, even Alaska and Hawaii. Earth Networks detected over 157.5 million total lightning strikes. And as I've alluded, the vast majority of them in cloud lightning. Only 32.6 million of those were cloud to ground strikes. So you get to see, as I try to do some quick mental math here, a good 125 million were in cloud lightning. So that shows you the vast majority, again, is in cloud lightning. Taking a look at the first half of 2019 as this trend continues, our research and development team, along with our good marketing team, such as Richard, helped to put this graphic together that illustrates we at Earth Networks through June detected nearly 48 million total lightning strikes in the United States. Of those, only about 8.1 million were cloud to ground. Again, the vast majority, you're talking about 39 million rather, were the in-cloud component. In-cloud lightning usually precedes and dominates the total lightning count as you take a look at the flash count. So again, that value of in-cloud lightning cannot be stated enough. It is so critical because it gives you that early warning, that early heads up that a storm is going to be dangerous and move in very quickly. And it also tells you that a storm could rapidly produce severe weather. Breaking it down by state for the first half of 2019, Texas leading the way, at least for the first half, with nearly 9 million of the in-cloud lightning strikes. Now, total cloud to ground, over 10 million there. But you can see Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Missouri, some of the other states in the Midwest also have a significant amount of lightning as well. And then you break it down by county. Pecos County, Brewster County, Palm Beach County, Miami-Dade County in Florida, Collier County. And you can see with all of these counties and with the 5 states I mentioned, the significant amount of lightning is in cloud. That's the big takeaway from this graphic. Remember, in cloud lightning is so valuable to be able to detect. And when you look at Orlando, Florida, as an example, we looked at Orlando, and the first half of 2019, there were 29,596 cloud-to-ground lightning strikes within a 25-mile radius. 504,000 in-cloud lightning strikes. So again, you're getting the message here that in-cloud lightning significantly outdoes the cloud-to-ground component. That's why having that early warning system to be able to detect total lightning, including the in-cloud component, is a critical part of having the best lightning safety solution. Looking at Dallas-Fort Worth as an example, 65,000 cloud-to-ground lightning strikes within a 25-mile radius. That's impressive, sure, but over 1 million in-cloud lightning strikes within a 25-mile radius. So again, in-cloud lightning, high-frequency lightning, and that is exactly what we are seeing just when we look at 2019. Another factor, of the last 30 years in the United States, about 500 people are struck by lightning each year. Of those, though, only 10% are killed. I was sharing this with my lovely wife just yesterday, and she was surprised and said, why don't more people die? Well, it's a blessing more people don't die, but unfortunately, many people are left with life-threatening or life-debilitating problems. It could be paralysis. It could be memory loss. It could be depression. There could be a lot of things that happen as a result of either a direct or an indirect lightning strike. And I just kind of went into this in a little way when I talk about direct strikes by lightning. A cloud-to-ground strike that hits you is a direct strike. But friends, you can be at risk for other types of strikes from lightning. A Scythe Flash is when a CG cloud-to-ground strike hits close by and deflects to the victim. That can happen. There can be a contact injury where CG strikes something the victim is holding. I always tell people, don't carry the umbrella when there's a thunderstorm. Why? It goes up straight in the air and it's made of metal. Not a good thing to have, but keep in mind, we're trying to keep you safe here. That's why we're doing this webinar. There could be a ground current. CG strikes the ground, okay, and then a victim or animals even nearby can get struck. There are many cases about things like reindeer I've seen in the great Northwest, in portions of Canada that have been struck and killed by lightning storms. Cows on a farm have been struck and killed from a lightning bolt that hits the ground, and then all of a sudden that current can travel through the ground. So keep in mind, you can be struck from below. That ground current carries charge. There can be streamers during lightning storms that travel through people causing harm. And finally, a blast injury. That's an injury that occurs through blast effect, like thunder, like ear ruptures, or when the victim is thrown. Medical risks, which I've alluded to, things like cardiac arrest, sprains, broken bones, entry and exit wounds, burns are very common. Nervous system damage, as well as paralysis, impaired reflexes. Eardrums can get ruptured very easily. Also muscular damage like Parkinson's disease and respiratory paralysis as well. So just keep that in mind, that there can be many impacts from lightning that you need to be aware of. And always, this is a concern that when you're outside, you're putting yourself at risk from lightning. So this is why we are trying to go through this step by step to tell you, you don't need to be struck by lightning directly. There can be many indirect or side flashes that cause the lightning to injure you. And that is why we are doing this webinar, because it is so valuable. Lightning is a key indicator of severe storms, as mentioned, and it is something that is categorized as severe when you have 58 miles an hour winds or greater, a tornado, or hail that's about an inch in diameter or larger. In fact, we right now at Earth Networks are likely getting a severe thunderstorm. There's some gusty winds. There's certainly lots of vivid lightning. And yes, indeed, there will be some flash flooding as well associated with some of these storms. So lightning is a strong indicator of severe storms. About 90% of high wind reports include lightning. About 94% of tornado reports also include lightning. And nearly 100% of hail reports include lightning. So tornado, high wind reports from 2013 in the United States with and without lightning show you that there is certainly a tremendous correlation between those factors. If you look at 2019, dangerous thunderstorm alerts. Well, what are they? Earth Networks has the ability to leverage our total lightning data to actually issue automated alerts that indicate when there is a dangerous storm within a certain radius of your area that there is going to be a storm with a lot of lightning. It provides a greater lead time on severe storms compared to publicly accessible alerts. That athletes and stakeholders, both at a park, sports complex, or a campus, are going to be impacted, as well as the general public, staff, events, outdoor recreation and sports, as well as equipment and structures. Those are all things that are going to be impacted by severe weather. So keep in mind that when you're outdoors at any athletic facility, there is going to be this concern. But other forms of extreme weather, such as the heat, high winds, hail, and heavy rain, could also be very impactful at your athletic facility. Again, the goal of this is simply to keep you well informed and to keep you safe by taking you through and showing you some real-time examples, and to also illustrate what an effective lightning safety plan is all about and how to keep you and yours safe at your facility. I can tell you that the thunder and the lightning that you see and that you hear is going to be a major concern. Lightning strikes happen all the time. The question is, are you ready? So our next poll question is, are you adequately protecting your facility from lightning? I'll give you a couple minutes to answer that question, then we'll move on.
All right, and we'll close that poll right now. It looks like 40% think that they're adequately protecting their facility from lightning.
Okay. Well, thank you, Andy. Andy Berger, of course, from the Athletic Business. Appreciate all the support, and you've provided this webinar platform for us here. And now it's time to really dive into that. Okay, if only 40% believe they're doing it, how can we all do a better job? And we all need to do a better job. Well, let's get into it. Lightning Safety 101, the key pillars: analyze, plan, detect, alert, respond, and improve. These are some of the keys that you need to implement a lightning safety plan at your facility. So we're going to kind of break each one down. The analyze portion means, okay, where is your facility located and how frequent is the lightning there? How about other weather events, extreme heat? What are your stakeholders doing? What's your safety team? Are there sanctioning body guidelines that need to be adhered to? What type of facility and shelter locations do you have? And which of those weather events pose a threat to your faculty, staff, visitors, and activities? You know, a great way to do this, to assess or analyze your weather threat, is to do what we call a severe weather grade card. You go through and you're able to look at everything from thunderstorm winds and hail all the way down to drought and wildfires, flooding, and tornadoes. And you look at all these weather events and you are able to determine which ones occur with the greatest frequency and which ones are rare. And that way you can go through, and you see Texas and Florida here as examples. You know, Texas has a lot of high winds and tropical weather, but, you know, heavy snow in Texas is pretty rare. It happens occasionally, but it's pretty rare. You know, in Florida, along the same token, heavy snow and freezing rain are going to be rare, but you're going to have flooding and you're going to have frequent lightning and high heat very often there. So state by state and even county by county, you can break this down and look at what are your key threats. The second step is looking at a plan. Build a policy spreadsheet. Map out your exposures and weather threats as well as responsible parties. Develop an action plan, including forecasting, detection, alerting procedures. What do you need to suspend or resume your activities? What's the safety protocol? Where are there designated safe shelters? What's the chain of command? These are all things to include in your action plan. Have a clear, effective communication strategy that alerts and educates you and your stakeholders. And then you develop your policy. Here's some food for thought. Proactively prepare for severe weather using automated weather safety systems. Believe me when I say this is worth the time and the investment, because when you are running around, and Ty can speak to this, as an athletic director or assistant athletic director, you're very busy. You don't want to be doing guesswork when a storm is coming in. You want to be able to have something like a horn system, like an audible alert, a visual alert that tells you when to stop activities or when to resume activities. This helps to keep your life simpler, and it also takes the guesswork out. If you do nothing, well, there's liability, there's loss, injuries, death, property damage, overtime, and overhead costs. All these things could cost you time and unfortunately lives. We don't want to see that happen. So an example to implement a lightning safety policy is this. Look at your detection method. Look at your monitoring radius. In this example, it's about 30 miles. Have technology that can detect both in-cloud and cloud-to-ground lightning. Have a safety protocol in place. Know what to do in the event of a lightning strike. And what is the criteria for suspending play? Make sure everyone is well aware. What's your alerting procedure? Technology that covers and alerts people when there's going to be a lightning strike. Where do you go on campus to stay safe during an event? What is the chain of command as well? And finally, what's your communication strategy to implement that will help to keep you, your stakeholders, and all people safe? This is so important to keeping your campus well informed. So moving on to the third pillar, we're on to detection. Have a hyper-local weather monitoring and forecasting system. This includes the ability to detect changing weather conditions and lightning in real time. Pay attention to those threats that are relevant to you. For instance, maybe heavy snow or freezing rain isn't relevant, but heat, high winds, and hurricanes might be. Questions to ask yourself might be, what weather events am I truly monitoring? What are the thresholds? Do you need to monitor for 40-mile-an-hour winds or 60-mile-an-hour winds? How much lead time do I need to take action? All questions to ask. And we here at Earth Networks offer a wonderful visualization tool. So we take all that technology, all of that wonderful lightning data, and we're able to help you visualize it. This is an example of Spheric Maps. It's one of our web-based software applications, one of our SaaS offerings. And what it shows is in-cloud lightning, cloud-to-ground lightning, that's in the yellow, in-cloud is in the magenta, dangerous thunderstorm alerts. Those DTAs I mentioned, those are so valuable because they're automated alerts that help to keep you, your loved ones, your campus, safety, friends, athletic coaches, as well as students and fans, all safe by putting out polygons that can alert you on your phone or via email of when there is dangerous storms that are moving in. These could be storms that aren't yet warned by the National Weather Service, but they may become severe and they may produce severe weather. Wetbulb globe temperature, that's another important parameter that we at Earth Networks are able to show as well. Wetbulb globe temperature is an indication of just how uncomfortable it feels outside when you factor in things like the sunlight, wind or lack thereof, as well as the humidity aspect. So keep that in mind, that Wetbulb globe temperature is going to be another important piece of data that you'll want to look at. Now, how exactly do you detect? Well, we detect at Earth Networks, as I said, total lightning in cloud and cloud to ground. But some of you may utilize a solution that is a lightning prediction system. And unfortunately, those aren't the best. Here's why. They really work on identifying areas of electrostatic discharges in the atmosphere when there's a certain potential for lightning, but lightning hasn't been spotted, it hasn't been detected, just potential. That can increase false alarms. You could be notifying people and getting people off the field when there's no need to. And unfortunately, that could irritate fans, spectators, and athletes alike. There could also be times where it just misses it, and unfortunately, it doesn't show that there's lightning or indicate that. And then you have another issue where people weren't taken to safety, and you've got some liability issues there as well. So keep in mind that single node lightning prediction systems just aren't great. They have a limited range as well, only about 20 miles or so, poor accuracy, and they typically only detect cloud to ground lightning, whereas we detect, again, in cloud and cloud to ground with high accuracy, and we have 1,700 sensors spanning the whole world. So we can detect lightning in Nigeria, in Indiana, in France, even in Alaska. When there is lightning in your area across a certain radius, we're going to be able to detect that. Another pillar that's so critical is the alerting piece. You can have the greatest technology, but if you're not going to be able to alert people, it's all for naught. Think about why the recipients need this alert. The general public and athletes, obviously they need to get to shelter and safety. Safety team, they need to implement the procedures. The emergency department, well, they need to prepare for a possible incident. So everyone needs to be alerted and to be kept informed. Consider the actions you expect after the alert is received. These alerts could go to you in person. They could be audible alerts like our horn system that we offer, visual alerts like a flashing strobe light, mobile alerts that go to your cell phone, as well as system alerts that might come over the big that might come over the scoreboard, for instance, to alert you that there's been a lightning strike, activities have been suspended. These are all great ways to communicate the threat of severe weather safety and to keep you and yours safe. Why do we need to automate alerts? Well, think about it. There's so much going on during athletic events. We need to overcome those distractions, and we need to reduce the confusion, speed up that delivery, and streamline the process so that we can save lives and get people safe immediately. Transparency, too. People need to be kept informed, whether that's referees, coaches, ADs, the fans. Everyone needs to know what to do and where to go. And accuracy is key, too. There's no arguing and no second guessing when you have an audible and automated alerting system. We offer enterprise-level monitoring and alerting. This takes your alert to the next level. It helps to improve the response time when there is lightning. And some of the features of this include what weather threats is your team seeing and monitoring. You can manage what alerts go out and when. Some of the benefits, well, it empowers your team to make good, informed, independent decisions. So again, takes all the guesswork out, ensures efficient, uniform implementation across the board, and it prevents employees from opting out of alerts. So everyone is informed. There's no excuses not to be, because you are going to get the alert. And then moving on to the next pillar, response. Responding is key. Make sure all the steps are in place. You've got a plan to execute in the event of the alert. Have a quick pre-event meeting. Go over what might happen if there is severe weather. Where do you go? Where are the shelters? Is there enough time to get there? What's your detection methodology? Keep in mind your stakeholders need to be informed on the safety procedures as well, to have signs on the policy and know where to go. And always err on the side of caution for sure. Give yourself as much warning time as possible. Here's a practical example taken from the greater Houston area. It's showing a high school, and again, Houston's a huge city, huge metropolis. And what we have is 3 range rings. The red indicates 10 miles, the yellow is about 15 miles, and the outer ring is 25 miles. Each one of these a different radius, but each one is critical, because if there's an outdoor soccer match, say between local rivals, we've got stakeholders, coaches, athletes, referees, spectators, maybe 100+ spectators and cheerleaders during the afternoon. Here's what happens. Storm starts to roll in. The storm initially produces in cloud, that's icy lightning, within 25 miles. Immediately, there's going to be a mobile alert sent to the athletic director and the assistant athletic director, like our friend Ty Phillips at JMU. The response is immediate. Lightning is within a dangerous radius. You're looking at the direction of the storm, and you're starting to prepare to stop the game. Next time, within 15 miles, you're going to get another mobile alert that says there's more in-cloud lightning. Now it's only 15 miles away, and it's moving toward your facility. This alert is now sent to athletic, emergency, and facility management department staff. The response is as follows. Lightning's approaching the danger zone, which is really within 10 miles. You're confirming shelter locations are available and accessible. You're sharing updates and warnings with your opposing coaches and referees, and you're preparing to stop the game. And everyone should be prepared. Okay, that storm could move in very quickly to the danger zone. Get ready to stop. And then, of course, finally, there's cloud-to-ground lightning, the CG lightning I mentioned, within 10 miles. Now we take serious action. Outdoor horn sounds, the strobe light flashes. It's time to get to shelter immediately. Stop the game. Direct all student athletes, cheerleaders, coaches, spectators to an indoor location. Stay indoors until you get the all clear. And what our technology does is anytime there's lightning, in cloud or cloud to ground, within that danger zone radius, the clock is reset. So in other words, you won't go outside or resume action until at least 30 minutes when there's been no thunder and lightning. And that is the best protocol. Multiple applications can illustrate this. If there's a single location, well, you can set that up using spheric maps. If you want multiple locations across a wide area, we can do that. We can have multiple horn systems set up. You can have multiple locations over a small area. Really, the possibilities are endless. but we aim to keep you safe. Our mission at Earth Networks is to protect lives, to protect property, and to ensure safety is practiced. And here is that audible alerting system that I mentioned to you, the automated outdoor visual and audible lightning alerting system. It's got a system that detects lightning, again, in cloud and cloud to ground. A horn will go off when lightning is within a certain radius that you define. For most, it's 10 miles. Everyone must seek shelter. There's a countdown clock, though, when that lightning occurs within 10 miles. Each time there's lightning within 10 miles, that clock gets reset. So again, lightning occurs within 10 miles, it gets reset to 30 minutes. And then finally, when there hasn't been lightning within 30 minutes, within that radius of 10 miles, you're free to resume action and go back outside. Utilize a system that has that automated countdown clock. Ty Phillips will attest to this. You don't want to be when there is so much going on at an athletic event. You don't want to be running around looking at your watch, looking at a stopwatch. You want to be able to take that guesswork out of your system, out of your plate, and to be able to truly automate the countdown process. It ensures accuracy and safety and saves a bunch of time, especially in an emergency situation like that. And then finally, improve. We can all improve at what we're doing. This is a great way to go back, look at an event, make a checklist to record each event, what went right, what went wrong. Conduct regular education sessions, too. The public needs to know what to do and how to take action. The public will not take the threat of lightning seriously unless you show them why. Carry out regular drills like fire drills or tornado drills to help improve. Do that post-event analysis to review, again, areas of improvement. Stay on top of industry best practices. A good way to do that is through this webinar that we're offering here at Earth Network. So once again, analyze, plan, detect, alert, respond, improve. 6 easy steps to manage lightning safety at your facility, and each one of these is so important. But I want to stress again the importance of improvement, because you can have the best plan, the greatest technology, a wonderful communication system, but okay, you got to find a way to make sure there are no inefficiencies. So always go back on that 6th step, look at ways to improve. Post-analysis time is so critical to learn what went right, what went wrong, and how you can all do a better job. Boy, a man that can speak a lot to this, because he's been on all sides of this as an assistant athletic director at James Madison University, is our friend Ty Phillips. Now, Ty, again, has utilized the technology. He has that in place. He also leverages the Met Services component that is so critical of having weather information at your fingertips or on your phone 24/7, 365 to be able to talk to a real live meteorologist is so important. So, Ty, I want you to take it away and talk about your perspective there at James Madison University, and even take us through a little case study about your experiences.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Steve. This is very educational for me, too. I'm really a professional in terms of facilities and event management, but really here on campus, weather, in my role, I've learned that weather really plays a critical factor in our operations. And our campus is located in the western part of Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley. For those of you that may not be aware, we're a member of the football championship subdivision. We have 18 Division I sport programs here on campus. We have around 22,000 students on our campus, and we sit here in the county of Rockingham and Harrisonburg, Virginia. And there's about a little over 50,000 people here when our students are around. We have 2 mountain chains that border us. So weather can really change pretty quickly, and we don't always can't always anticipate what that weather is. It can change for better or worse pretty rapidly. We have a number of outdoor events. Obviously, the typical traditional athletic events that you would think of that happen on a campus, but our campus is a very active campus with recreation. We host a number of outdoor events in in our venues, but also across campus. Just as recent as last evening, we had the campus hosted the faculty staff picnic, and they know that we in athletics, along with public safety, we have this technology that we have been working with through Earth Networks, and we end up being the contact to help them anticipate weather and make adjustments in what they're going to do, because it's an outdoor event. Some of the things that I've heard Steve say, we certainly have learned a lot from weather. I think I'm not sure who all the folks are on the call, but I think we probably all can relate the challenges that weather can play and the havoc that it can play when you're not prepared. And when it happens real time and you have to adjust, makes it really challenging. You got coaches, you got student athletes, you've got people that really should be the biggest priority. And I think what it comes down to, it's a life safety issue. And I don't think we've always prioritized that previously on our campus, but we had a graduation that was impacted in 2001 that really was what energized us and really provided momentum to get us to where we are today. The original really kind of reaction to that was we went with a lightning prediction system, and we used that for a number of years. And that was kind of a stopgap, and we really promoted that on campus and did a real mass education, and people were aware of this alerting system. But with that came the frustrations of it not being something that we had confidence in. It wasn't something that was always accurate. There was not the traditional technology where you can look at radar, is even something that the common person, the average person, has access to. It didn't even match up to that. So long story short, we actually ended up moving toward this technology that we use now through Earth Networks. And on our campus, we really have taken it seriously. I think because of some bad experiences, and we've learned, and I think that's the key, is that as long as you're learning from your mistakes, we have had, I think it was actually fortunate several years ago where we actually had a football game going on and we had to clear the stadium during the event. I serve as the general incident manager. I'm responsible for the event until it turns into an emergency, and then we have an emergency operations center that takes place. But in the event of a lightning event, which is what we had, then it's my decision to clear the stadium. We have thresholds, just like Steve mentions, which are actually different than what we have for day-to-day campus life. Day-to-day campus life, you can imagine, students are milling around, they're walking back and forth to classes, most of which are not paying attention to anything that's going on above them. When it rains and there's a thunderstorm, people take action because they don't want to get wet. I don't know if they don't want to get struck by lightning. I would say the vast majority of people would say they don't want to be struck by lightning, but when it rains, people do seek shelter. I think the more serious concern, and Steve hit on that, is when these lightning strikes out of the blue, or there's lightning on the leading edge or the trailing edge of a storm. And these students and staff that are walking around campus that aren't always paying attention is a big concern. So we have these horn systems that are set at a 10-mile radius, and our campus is very spread out. So the horns alert, and people are educated that those horns mean to seek shelter. It doesn't mean everybody does, but we are doing our due diligence to alert and educate. And people, our students, when they start campus, when they start school, they get an educational session on what this technology is, because most of them are not familiar with that. Then for each of our venues that we manage in athletics, we have different thresholds set, because we're concerned, again, about life safety, and the time that it takes to clear a football stadium with 25,000 people is different than a venue that maybe has 1,000 people. But when we detect or we anticipate that we're going to have lightning, then we can then be proactive, and we can stand up, we can put people on guard, We even actually put communication on our video board when it's beyond what we clear. So at 20 miles, we would put a communication, a video display, even a radar on our video board, and put out social media to say, there is a chance that we're going to have imminent lightning coming up. So you do not have to clear the stadium at this point, but there's the good chance that we're going to be clearing very soon. So basically use your best judgment. And then we're putting our staff in place to be prepared for that egress so that we can start to move people out and point people to safety, to the nearest buildings, to cars, to whatever we've appropriate to that venue. And then when the storm approaches whatever threshold that we've set, which is usually more conservative than that 10-mile radius. So you can see on the screen, it's 12 miles actually for our football stadium, because we want to allow more time to get people out of our stadium, to buses, to the nearest parking lots, wherever they park, to make sure that they can get safely to shelter. I think some of the things that we've learned that I've heard Steve talk about is, are you the decision maker? And I think that's something that I would really encourage people on, whether it's a college campus or if you're working private sector, if you're managing facilities and you're responsible. I'm not always the decision maker. If I'm the event manager for a specific athletic event, then I may be the decision maker. But during practices, we have designated our sports medicine staff for that particular sport to be the decision maker. We do not leave that in the hands of coaches. So it's really important that you do have decision makers. There's a clarity of roles, and it doesn't get any gray. There's no gray areas. I am not, we do not believe that coaches should be making those decisions. First of all, coaches are very distracted at practices, and coaches want to stretch the limits. They want to get every available minute that they can, and I don't know that that makes for the best decision makers in many venues. Some cases, recreational settings, there may not be a sports medicine staff, so they probably are the best decision maker that's there. They may be the responsible party there. But I think the general principle is that you need to make sure that you have a decision maker there that knows the role, knows your policy for whatever venue or school or institution you work at, so that if you get an alert on your phone, if you get a horn blast, you know what you're going to do in that situation, and then you have a place to tell them to go. It may be a car, it may be a building, it may be that you cancel practice, but you need to have a good plan. And we really spend a lot of time on that, because lightning is a pretty common thing, especially in the fall, and then in the late spring when we have outdoor sports. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that. And early on, when we implemented this, one of the things we found is that we were concerned that officials, referees, may not want to listen. But I think what we found for the vast majority is that officials, referees, whomever is managing that sporting event, when they take over, they're not paying attention to the weather either, and they are very agreeable. When we approach them, we first meet with them at a pre-game meeting, pre-event meeting, and tell them, here is our policy on our campus. We will alert you. We're not going to tell you, we're going to give you as much warning as we can, and we're going to try to do it at a convenient time, in between innings, in between quarters, at halftime, so that it's not too disruptive. But we've had a very rare occasion when an official or a referee did not want to listen, because I think life safety trumps competition for the vast majority of people. So we've learned through this. The weather technology that Earth Networks has been so helpful, especially when I'm at home, not always paying attention. I live 20 minutes from campus. I get an alert on my phone. You set the thresholds. You can use it however you want to customize it. But for me, it's really helpful. When I'm not on guard, weather can be very different 10 miles down the road. So if I get an alert on my phone the way that I've set it up, or my staff, then we can get that alert, and then we can even think about that. Okay, we've got an event going on. Let's make sure we're checking in to see how that event is operating if we're not there on campus. So I was in a meeting this morning, wasn't paying attention to football practice, soccer practice. I see there's a storm approaching. I'm checking in with our director of football ops. He's aware. Our sports medicine is actually in charge of that, but I want to make sure they have a plan. They're aware. I hear the horns go off almost right on cue with that. Everything goes according to plan. They clear the stadium, they move indoors, and then they practice, and they adjust their practice because of this technology. Our stadium pretty much is enclosed, and where the weather is approaching, you can't see the ominous weather approaching. So the technology is really helpful. We've been really fortunate to be able to find this. I know there's a lot of technologies out there. I think find the right fit for your institution, your organization, but making sure you're using it. I think it's hard not to use the technology that's available now because we're in a day and age, I think, in a society when everybody is looking for transparency. Risk management is a huge component of what we do in the athletics world. So be glad to talk more, but wanted to share just the lessons that I've had here on our campus, the experiences, and really helpful in the heat of the moment to be able to show them that technology, be able to talk to that meteorologist so that I'm not having to interpret what I'm seeing. We can just actually go right to the experts.
Thank you very much, Ty. Great perspective, and certainly we appreciate your sharing these experiences because, as you say, you did have a prediction system at one point, and now you've advanced to the detection system. And, you spoke very eloquently about how important that is. It saves time. It's wonderful. It's something that takes a lot of guesswork out, reduces false alarms. So, thank you again for giving up your time. I know you've had a busy day already, and especially with the fall athletics season in high gear or kicking into high gear right now, I know your time is precious. So thank you again. Ty Phillips, Assistant Athletic Director at James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia, providing his valuable perspective on his lightning safety solution he has in place there at James Madison University, doing his due diligence and then some to protect lives and property there at JMU. Thank you, Ty.
Thank you, Steve.
So question number 3 to wrap things up here is, would you be interested in speaking to a weather safety expert? Again, would you be interested in speaking to a weather safety expert? A simple yes or no question. We'd obviously love to get your perspective. We'd love to hear from you and talk to you. If maybe that 40% that said earlier they're not doing a good job and they'd like to maybe do a better job of keeping their facility safe, we love to talk to you, and we are delighted here at Earth Networks to do likewise. And by the way, a little bit about our company here at Earth Networks. We are located, as I said, in Germantown, Maryland, and we have the ability in Germantown, Maryland to showcase a lot of our technology that we have here. This includes our weather network. It also includes our global weather stations, which are about 10,000 plus. We are also the weather data provider for WeatherBug. You might have heard about that brand that we created and we sold in 2016. But again, we continue to provide them data for their solutions and what they do. And some of our key solutions include the spheric maps I mentioned, our outdoor alerting system that Ty alluded to, and our weather stations as well. And James Madison University is a wonderful example of a great university partner that we've collaborated with over the years, but we certainly have others. Including University of Utah, Iowa State. We work with MLS, Penn State, Texas, National Weather Service, Major League Baseball, and the NFL. So we have a lot of partners out there that we work with that leverages technology because really at the end of the day, as Ty said, it all comes down to safety. It's not about getting that extra inning in. It's about saving the extra life, and that's what we want to do. So with that, I'll turn things back over to Andy Berg. We're glad to take any questions and comments. And again, if you want any more information on what we offer as far as our solutions at Earth Network, simply email us, friends, at info info@earthnetworks.com. That's info@earthnetworks.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm going to toss it back to you, Andy, and thank you again for your help in producing and getting today's webinar on air for so many people to enjoy and certainly to engage in best practices for lightning safety.
No, great presentation. A lot of information there for everybody. Again, apologize for the little technical difficulty, but if anybody wants to go back and see any of the slides that maybe we we had that outage, who knows, possibly due to the lightning in your area, Steve, something to do with bandwidth. Before we get into further questions, I did have one that 3 different people have asked for a little clarification on that 10 miles. One person is asking, you know, why is that 10 miles set that it is, and sort of if you could provide a little bit of clarity on that.
Absolutely, and it's an excellent question. The 3 of you and many others that may be curious, I can tell you this much. Lightning can typically strike, and I want to go all the way back here, if I may, in this presentation, just to reiterate this. Lightning can dart out a good 10 to 12 miles from a parent thunderstorm, and this is why having that radius of at least 10 miles, and to Ty's point, for the football stadium, especially evacuating some 25,000 people, to have the ability to detect lightning and get people alerted within 10 miles is critical. Why? Take a look on the right-hand side of the screen. The bolt from the blue. This can be so dangerous because lightning can typically strike, even under a blue sky or a sunny sky, from 10 to 12 miles outside of the parent thunderstorm cloud. That's why to have that radius of 10 miles, I believe, is critical. And another reason behind this 10-mile rule is because typically you can hear thunder. Of course, there are going to be obstructions like buildings and mountains, but generally you can hear thunder if the storm is within about 10 miles of you. That's why we always say, simply put, from the National Weather Service, when thunder roars, go indoors. So usually sound waves can be heard from lightning, that's thunder, within 10 miles. So that's why that radius is usually what we recommend as a minimum. But again, what Ty has is he's got a 30-mile threshold to get people prepared to take action. Okay, some of the key stakeholders are informed that this storm is moving in rapidly, so you may want to prepare to take action even as it gets within 15 miles. But as a general rule of thumb, as a certainly minimum, within 10 miles, activities are stopped, horn goes off, strobe light goes off, everyone's in a safe place.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for the clarification there. What do you say to the person who says, you know, I use WeatherBug on my phone, that seems to do an okay job. What kind of additional features am I going to get from a more professional, you know, end-to-end solution, such as
Sure, another great question. Certainly the WeatherBug application is extremely valuable, very helpful, very useful. You know, but when you think about any phone app, it's going to be providing you information. There's going to be some challenges. There's going to be some inaccuracies as well. So what you really, and also some updates that need to happen. So I say this, if you want to get a assessment of the weather, what you can do is have a professional solution rather than a phone application, a professional solution, and talk to a real meteorologist that's available 24/7, 365 days a year through Met services. There can be alerts that you can set up as well. Those automated alerts can help you get to safety, get you to shelter, and inform people. It also goes to multiple recipients. All those are great ways to keep yourself informed. Phone apps are good. Phone apps are certainly valuable. I'm not saying they are not. I'm just saying if you want the most comprehensive weather information with real-time alerting, automated alerting, and also the ability to speak to a real meteorologist at 3 p.m. or at 3 a.m., Earth Networks and a solution like what we have where you can talk to someone who's a real meteorologist 24/7, 365 is the way to go.
Sure. We've got a couple of aquatics questions here. Can you talk a little bit about the effects of thunder and lightning at, say, an indoor aquatics facility? Are there any concerns there?
That's an excellent question. Well, Andy, as we heard, lightning can strike from below. There are people that are struck when it's certainly not a direct strike, but lightning can strike the ground, and then that current can travel through the ground. It also likes water. Obviously, lightning is, water is a conductor of lightning. Metal is a conductor of lightning. So those things, especially with some of the pipes, with the water in a pool, that's going to conduct. Plus, many of these aquatic centers have huge windows. And obviously, lightning isn't going to just stop at a window. It's going to penetrate. So I would strongly recommend, even if it's an indoor pool, please follow the safety recommendations, the safety advice that we've been telling you about throughout this webinar. If it's an indoor pool or an outdoor pool, practice pool safety, practice lightning safety by making sure that you are keeping in mind that radius. 10 miles is a minimum, getting people out of the pool when lightning or storms are within that 10 miles, and not letting them go back in until 30 minutes after that last lightning strike.
Sure. This is probably a good segue to ask Ty. Does each department at JMU, do they have a different policy for lightning, or is it the same no matter the sport or the venue?
So in general, great question. Our public safety is ultimately responsible for all of our emergency preparedness. So we have the horn strategically placed, really in coordination with Earth Networks. They did an analysis to make sure that we have horns across campus so that at any location on our campus, you can hear the audible horn. Each of those horns are set at a 10-mile radius. But our campus is so spread out. Theoretically, you could be on one part of campus and the horn could go off, but it doesn't go off on the rest of campus until that storm gets within that 10-mile radius. In general, all of campus follows that policy. For all of our athletic events and then larger campus events, we may implement a more stringent or a more, a different plan that really allows for, we consider the attendees, where they're parking, how many are going to be there, all these other factors. So as a kind of general rule of thumb, everything at a minimum, it's always going to be the 10-mile radius. It may exceed that and become a 12-mile or a 15-mile radius, as in the event of like a university commencement where we've got all these ceremonies going on across campus, and now you're talking about 30 or 40,000 people on a campus, and there is a mass egress plan that has to be implemented when we go into an evacuation mode. So in general, there's one plan that then is implemented, but each venue has the opportunity to make that a little bit stronger based off of the event, the kind of the environmental factors that are going on at that time of the year.
Sure. Okay. A more specific question here, probably directed at Steve. Can you explain slide 13 about flash density? Is the person is asking, is the graphic stating that there are no flashes in the Arizona area? I don't know if we can go back to that.
Sure.
That slide there.
I'm on slide 13 now, Andy, and friend who asked that. I can tell you this much. This analysis was done by our research and development team, and it looks at the first half of 2019, so through June. And what it's plotting is, from our network, what there was in terms of the greatest frequency per square mile per year of lightning flashes. And there certainly have been lightning flashes even throughout California, Nevada, and Arizona. But again, what this is really highlighting is the greatest frequency, lightning flashes per square mile per year. So it's kind of an average of what you would expect. But again, it's just looking at the first 6 months of 2019. And what you're really supposed to get as a takeaway from this is, what parts of the country is lightning the most common? Where have we seen the most frequent lightning strikes? And people are maybe most at risk per square mile of getting struck. And you can see what stands out is obviously Florida and Texas, as we got into Oklahoma, Kansas, parts of Nebraska as well have the highest frequencies. But believe me, we've seen even a rare Southern California lightning event back in March that I will never forget, where the lightning was just illuminating an area in Southern California that seldom sees lightning. So as I said, every state in the country, Alaska and Hawaii included, sees lightning. And this is why having a total lightning solution in place is so critical, because even a rare occurrence, or even if a storm is not severe, I say this all the time, it could be kind of a general popcorn thunderstorm that popped up. All thunderstorms are dangerous. All thunderstorms produce lightning, and all thunderstorms, unfortunately, can kill and injure, and we don't want that to happen.
Sure. All right, well, we're coming up on an hour here. One last question. And this is something we're pretty familiar with here in Wisconsin lately. When it comes to high winds, what do you recommend in terms of a monitoring threshold there?
Yeah, that's a great question. There might be some dependencies on your geography, I'll just say that. But as a general rule of thumb, I recommend about 40 miles per hour as a threshold for high winds or wind gusts. And the reason for that is that gets into what we say is gale force. And that is also a type of wind that can down some tree branches, some small limbs. So keep that in mind, that you can have high winds of that magnitude, as I mentioned, that can produce some damage. Now, of course, your severe weather winds are 58 miles an hour or greater, but the high wind threshold that I would recommend is about 40 miles an hour. When you have an alert, and you can do this using spheric maps, when you set up your automated alerts and you set it for 40 miles an hour, I think that provides an appropriate threshold where there's going to be some safety concerns as it hits 40 miles an hour or greater. You don't want anyone to get hit by branches that are coming down from a nearby tree. Andy?
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, I think that about wraps it up for today. I want to let the audience know if there are any questions that did come in that maybe didn't get to. Somebody from Earth Networks can definitely get back to you and answer those questions. Ty and Steve, I want to thank you guys so much for participating today. A great, very informative webinar. And I, of course, always thank Earth Networks for sponsoring this, and look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Ty. Have a great day and be safe.